Welcome to Southern Gospel Journal. My name is Daniel Mount, and I have the privilege today to be joined by Josh Singletary of Tribute Quartet. How are you doing this evening?
I'm wonderful, Daniel. It's good to see you. It's been a while since we've talked to each other.
I'm glad to have the excuse to get back at it.
Sure you are. That's awesome.
So I'm going to assume that 95% of the people tuning in to an album interview about your newest release will know who you are. But for those couple percent who don't, would you mind just briefly introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Josh Singletary. I started in gospel music about 25 years ago with a little family group called I say little family group. They're a very well-known family group called the Wilburns out of Carthage, Tennessee. When they retired, one of the fellow alumni and I started our quartet, and we've been doing Tribute Quartet now for 20 years. This year's the 20-year celebration, and it's just mind-boggling. I can't believe 20 years has gone by that fast. That goes to show you, man, life is a vapor.
Life is a vapor. And I actually have memories of, I was already blogging about Southern Gospel when you launched Tribute.
Yeah.
And I remember putting up the stories discussing the launching of Tribute, the selecting of the name. 20 years back for me too. I remember covering you back then.
Oh, man. That's just crazy. So, yeah, for those who don't know, I play the piano and sing baritone for the group, and do some of the arranging and some producing here and there. But yeah, that's mainly what. And then I do all the social media stuff, all the videos, all the office stuff.
Yep. Working hard.
Working hard. Got to make it happen, man.
So it has been, this album came out a few weeks ago, and it was almost almost to the date, 3 years since your last album of new songs, which is Always Grace, January of 2023. So has this album been in the works for a while?
Actually, no. What's funny about that is this was we didn't start the process, this album until March, April.
Okay.
Of 2026. Wow. The deal is we do, as you well know, we do these quartet tribute albums, and we've gone back and we've done some albums of songs recorded on other albums back in the day that we no longer carry. And so we had been in the process of releasing a lot of that, and it 2 years, 3 years passed, and we hadn't even done a brand new album. So no, it would seem as if we had been working on it for that long, but no, it was started in March, and we realized, it's time, and we really need to come up with something brand new and something different to say, for sure.
Neat. So as you go through the recording process, I've heard you say before, and I think even in social media for this one, you often pick an album title, not just because it's a song title, but because as you're putting together and recording that collection of songs, you see themes start to emerge.
Yes.
So what are the themes that emerged in the songs that led you to title this project Forever?
Well, we were discussing it one day, and we were me, Gary, and Gus were in the bus discussing. We're thinking we need to come up with a title that really sums this up, and we began to just look at it, and we began to see this thread of the character of God within this album. We have songs about grace, songs about the blood, songs about who God is and what he does, and how his promises are real, and how he always comes through, and how he never fails, and that there's a real I was talking to someone the other day. Listen, I follow rabbit trails, but I always get back to it. Talking to someone the other day about how, each of us have our own issues, and we struggle with those things. and lots of times we fail with those things, and for to not say it in churchese, fighting your own demons,
Mhm.
put it in a secular, term. Those things that you struggle with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that you have to constantly um, give up and sacrifice. And we were talking about how it's funny when people say, uh, "Oh, that God stuff. Oh God, it's just a crutch." My response to that is, yeah, yeah, it is a crutch. I cannot live a day without the faithfulness of God. I cannot live a week. I can't live another second without Him near me. I have to have Him near me, because if I don't, I am like a blind man leading a blind man. I have
Mhm.
no which way I'm going. I don't know which way I'm going. I'm going to mess up everything if I don't have Him talking right here and me talking back. It's the relationship. And I think that that's another thing that kept coming up with this album, how just He's there. He's
Mhm.
always there. We've been, we are each friends of people, and there are times where seasons in our lives where we're closer with other people than other seasons, and may not be by choice. It may be just life happens, or maybe it is by choice. Maybe something happened within that relationship, and so there's no longer a that connection. Um, that doesn't happen with the Lord. That never
Mhm.
happens with the Lord. And so when we were discussing that, we were discussing these names, these words that what, and we couldn't pinpoint it. And I looked at Gus and I went, "What about forever?"
Hmm.
He went, "Huh." Gus and Gary went, "Huh," and I went, "Ah." So we decided. Ian was in bed, I think, at the time, and so we all went, "Forever it is." So and then it kind of on a side note, it was interesting how this is our 20th year as Tribute Quartet,
Mhm.
and how that kind of sort of wordplay, with the music, and how uh, the music doesn't matter what it is. The music always lasts. Good songs always last, and we've been very blessed with good songs. So you had that element, to the title to add to that. But it really was one of those moments.
Neat. All right, I would love to ask about a couple of specific songs,
Yeah,
and I think I'll start with "And Then," which was mainly because that's the first song you released as a single prior to the album
yeah.
being out. And when you put it out as a single, I heard the day it came out, I sent it to several family members, and I was like, "This song is amazing. You have to listen to this song."
Oh, kind.
And one of my sisters said, "Do you know who wrote it?" And I said, "It looks like the YouTube video doesn't have songwriter credits, so I don't know who wrote it. But if I had to guess, it sounds like a Lee Black song to me."
Wonder what gave that away.
There's a certain way he crafts
There
melodies and
is,
lyrics.
man.
And then when the lyrics came out, I was like, "Oh, yeah, it was Lee, but not just Lee. Josh is writing now." So I would love to hear what prompted the idea for this song.
Man, so I did a podcast every year. Dusty Wells and Dave Clark have me
And
on. Yeah,
let's
uh,
shout out the name of their podcast is "I Love to Tell the Story." It's a wonderful podcast. Check it out.
fabulous podcast.
Yes.
Fabulous. So Dave always has me on the annual anniversary podcast
Hmm.
every year. And so that being said, admittedly, I don't listen to podcasts much. If I'm
Okay.
listening to anything, it's generally to a book or the Word. If
Hmm.
if my life is just so hectic, I at least put on the Word, um,
That's good.
audibly, and and so uh, he said, "Okay, when we first discussed doing this, he's like, okay, we're gonna." I said, "Well, what we're gonna talk." Well, I said, "I assume we're gonna talk about the guests over the last year, and blah. He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, some of your favorite moments," and all. And I went, "Uh-huh, okay." So the 2 or 3 days prior, I binged because I wanted it to be fresh.
Mhm.
I binge listen on times 2 speed,
Mhm.
um, which took all of about 5 minutes to get used to, and then, and that was good to go. All of the podcasts, and one of the guests was Jaron Davis, who's a prolific
Yes.
songwriter.
What a
And,
writer.
for those who don't know, he wrote Holy Ground and In the Presence of Jehovah. Fantastic. Or, I'm gonna make it. Already
Uh-huh.
said that I would. Beautiful song. And so I don't exactly remember wholly the context of the statement. I just know he said it's all about the and then,
Yeah.
meaning essentially, life, and especially life as a Christian, is about, it's all about, even unto death, it's about the victory of God coming through, and again, the faithfulness of God. It's always about the and then. Everything can be just so bad, and you look in the word, people died and then they got up.
Mhm.
Right. So I wrote it down, and I knew I had a songwriting session with a few people, songwriting sessions with a couple different people coming up, and I had no ideas, and so I wrote that one down. I said, and then okay, so I had one with Lee Black, and we had to do something. So I looked at him, I said, okay, and I told him the story. He goes, we can do that, and he immediately started. Immediately started on the laptop. Now, what I love about Lee Black, okay,
Mhm.
for those who don't know him, he is this s- brilliant songwriter, brilliant lyricist, brilliant melody um, writer, and so a lot of this you don't know. Songwriters have different. The personalities are different, and it's just that.
Mhm.
So what one of the things that calmed me so. And because this is a new venture for me.
Yeah.
I've always given ideas, but I've never really put in the work to chip away at it. And so I'm and Lee's a friend. There's no reason for me to be intimidated. But at
Mhm.
this point, I'm in the room with the Lee Black songwriter. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So
We can say for context, fans of the group will know a song he wrote for you that's one of the biggest songs you've ever had,
yeah,
which is When the Prodigal
when the
Comes Home.
prodigal comes home.
Just as an example of his songwriting.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so I'm sitting there. And he's scribbling away, and then he's questioning everything, and I'm like, "You're Lee Black. Why are you asking me?" "Yeah, that works great. Yeah, it's fine." And I began to realize, this is an aside, just how much like me in that sense that he actually is, even though he's been doing this forever. There's still that is this. Anytime I think creators create something, you're still
Mhm.
questioning, and I think that's part of the process. I think it.
Yeah.
I think part of the process is it should be bad, and then you figure out why it's bad, then you fix it and you make it good. Anyway,
Yes.
I digress. So he began to write, and he goes, "Hey, how do you feel about um a part of a Bible story and the end of that line rhyme with and then, and every other line is and then?" And I went, well, that's a great idea. And he said, how do you feel about it being chronological? I said, I love that. I think that is great. And so he starts working out this first verse or chorus, and then he starts working out the first verse, and he's writing, and then he's writing the second verse. And he's like, well, what if we did Old Testament first verse, New Testament second verse? I went, yeah, I love that. And then bridge would be application. So
Yeah.
um, I'm hearing in my head, I'm hearing Karen Peck sing this song. If Tribute
Okay.
Quartet had not recorded it, I was going to pitch it to Karen. It just sounds like a Karen Peck
That makes
type
sense.
song. Yeah. Moses
Yeah.
sang out the children, faced the Red Sea, did it, but Pharaoh's men, and then, yeah, I hear it,
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah. That would be
So,
good.
I sat down at the piano. I'm like, man, this thing needs to build. Like it doesn't need. So I began to work out the chordage, which lots of times when you're working out the chords and the structure, the skeleton of it, a melody kind of just starts in there somewhere, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that's great. And then we finished this song, and it was funny. I took it to for those who don't know the process, when you record an album, lots of times artists, one of two processes happen. Artists write based on a specific thing immediately, that God's working in them. So they write songs based on that, and that's the album. All right.
Mhm.
The other process is what a lot of us in gospel music do, and in other genres, country, rock, it doesn't matter, where you get submissions. And we get about 500 or so a year. It's so many. And Gary sifts through a lot of that. And then we go to the record company. We sit down with the record company and everybody that's involved in that process. And we begin listening. And we begin a listening session. And we go, yeah, nah, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. So, um, Gus goes, I'd played the song for Gus before, and I only had a work tape. All right. Again, for
Mhm.
those who don't know, you listen to demos. Sometimes they're big productions. Sometimes they're just a skeleton vocal and piano or vocal and guitar, and that's it. But before they're a demo, an official demo, which is polished and clean and nice, the songwriters will do a work tape. All I had was the work tape at my 1925 green Baldwin downstairs on my phone. And so Gus goes, "Hey Josh, play that song." I said, "Okay." So we played it, and everyone loved it, and we got it, and we decided on it, and I was thrilled because Tribute Quartet had never written a song. But that's kind of the behind the scenes of that song. Now I will say if you talk to Ian Owens, our bass vocalist, he'll tell you the first. Have you heard this story?
No, I haven't.
Okay, all right. So everybody in the room was in favor. Now Ian, Ian doesn't. He admits he can't hear past the demo. In other words, for those
Mhm.
who need to know what that means, he can't imagine where it's going to go. He only
Yeah.
hears the front.
What's there?
That's it.
Yeah.
So we got in the studio, and Wayne Hahn, our producer, recorded the track, and Ian goes, "Oh my goodness, this is really." He said, "I have to admit, man." He said, "When I heard this song, I called my wife, and she asked how it went, and I said we picked some great songs, but there's this one song that is just terrible. It's just, I don't get it." He said, "But I didn't keep." He said, He said, "And that proves why I keep my mouth shut, and I should always keep my mouth shut because everyone in the room apparently knows what they're talking about, and I don't." so, so anyway, we recorded that song, but Daniel,
Mhm.
every night, I can't tell you people coming up with tears in their eyes. I just want you to know my family's going through this. We're going through that. This the biggest song of hope that I've heard in a long time. Blah blah blah. And man, it's amazing to see what God will use, especially how quickly this album came together. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
I texted Lee after the track was done and the vocals had been put on and it wasn't polished yet, and I sent it to him. He goes, "Man," he said, "It's apparent I don't know my head from a hole in the ground where good songs are concerned." He said, "Because I never dreamt of that." And I'm going, "Yeah, yeah, it's great. Wayne did a fantastic job." So that's kind of the basis behind it. He went with a straight on biblical
Mhm.
storyline to each thing, which I think doesn't happen a lot. It happens
Mhm.
some, and I know that good Christian songs and good gospel songs and good hymns, the ones that really last and that really make an impact on a lot of people, um, are biblically sound in their concepts. But it's been a long time since I've heard a song take actual stories. Boom, boom. Here's your
Mhm.
proof. You want proof that God will come through? Here you go. and then he did this, and then he did this, and then he did this. You know,
I think that's where a lot of the power comes from. There are plenty of gospel songs that reference one Bible story, but
yes,
this just goes through the whole Bible and it shows you there's a pattern here.
you need proof. There you go.
Exactly. I did want to mention one thing about one question about the arrangement as well.
Yeah.
Between the energy of the song in the minor key, but especially the orchestral swells at the beginning, it reminds me a little bit of another really good song y'all have done, "Good News from Jerusalem,"
Nah.
another song I love. And I'm just curious, was there anything in that arrangement that was like a tip of the cap to Good News,
No.
or was that just it just happened that
Just
way?
happened. That was Wayne Hahn. So, Good News from Jerusalem was Roger Talley and
That's Roger Talley.
who produced it, and then Milton Smith did the
Mhm.
orchestra, which, my humble opinion, is some of Milton's finest work.
Some of his best work, yes.
Is that track, hands
Yes.
down. And but no, Wayne just
Different
took it and went
producer,
with it.
nothing
He
intentional.
only orchestrated, if you remember, he only orchestrated 3 songs off that album. Um, but that was the biggest one. He really wanted it to have that storytelling quality to it, and man, he did it. He knocked it out of the park.
Definitely. The song's amazing.
Yeah.
And you weren't the only group member to co-write a song on this album,
Correct.
because Gus co-wrote "It's Time to Sing"
Yeah.
with Joel Lindsay and David Staten. Has he told you about what inspired that, and did he write it intentionally as a bass song for Ian?
I don't think he wrote it intentionally as a bass song. I think it kind of fell that
Okay,
way because, as you know, he recorded it when he was with the Lefevre Quartet
I had forgotten that.
as well.
Now
Yeah, and
you
it was
say
a
that.
bass
Yes,
vocal then as well. And I think
yes.
that was something that just kind of fell there, if I'm not mistaken. But
Okay,
him and David Staten just had this idea for a song. They just had "It's Time to Sing," right?
yeah.
And so they get into a session with Joel Lindsay, and they were just really having some trouble on these verses. Um, and they asked, and they told Joel, "Yeah, we're just struggling with this. What do you have?" And Joel, again, for those who don't know, Joel Lindsay, another prolific songwriter, just leans down and he starts scribbling. He said, "Well, how's this?" Uh, so he just starts reading off these lyrics.
Hmm.
It's um, and Gus and David both go, uh, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah,
That was that was the first draft.
that's
It's there.
crazy.
But and
Yeah.
that's what Daniel, man, that's what's so interesting. A lot of songwriters become machines, and it's their strong point and it's their weak point. They'll all tell you it's the strong point and the weak point all at the same time because they can just put them out. If you're looking for a song, man, they know how to write them well. Um, but at the same time, that they put out a whole bunch, and
Hmm.
that's what they'll tell you. But it's interesting how some of these wordsmiths are able to craft a thought.
Hmm.
If you've ever heard an interview with me and I'm trying to get into a deep topic, I'm really being careful at the words I use to try to, and they just, how's this? Yes, you know, and that was the great thing with Lee, man. It took us 2 sessions to finish it, um, because of just time, and but um, just the fact that that those songs, man. So it's time to sing. That's how that one came together.
Neat.
And so he kind of was hearing the same sort of thing because Lefevre's don't sing that one anymore. It was years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so we just kind of stuck with the same arrangement ish thing,
Neat.
you know.
All right. Another song that you have been staging a fair amount is "Heaven."
Yes.
And when I first heard that, I think I heard it Singing News TV, the Singing at Sea,
Yeah.
Singing at Sea set. You did it there. And I was like, that song sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't quite place it. And if you're looking for a song called Good News from Jerusalem on Spotify or YouTube, you're going to find it. If you're looking for another rendition of a song called Heaven, so I was like,
You just as
where
soon Google the word heaven. Yeah.
exactly?
Yeah.
So I was like, where have I heard this song before? And so for context, I didn't grow up around Southern Gospel. I discovered it in 2003 when I borrowed a cathedral CD from the library, kind of on a whim.
Mhm.
But for about 4 years before that, the preceding 4 years, 99 through 2003, I listened to the local CCM radio station, and that's kind of all I knew. And Bob Carlyle co-wrote the song with Randy Thomas and released it in 2000.
Mhm.
So I think I actually heard it on CCM radio in that 4 year period when that was what I listened to. And I hadn't heard that song in 25, 26 years.
Yeah.
I'm curious where you came across it.
So Gus has always been uh Gus is a fan of many, for lack of better words, obscure artists that
Hmm.
either aren't around anymore or a lot of people just never heard, but who were just
Yeah.
brilliant. Uh, Sitting with Gus listening to music is always an interesting and intriguing time. He analyzes constantly, and
Hmm.
so he has these collections of songs and artists that I've never heard of. The only
Hmm.
time I ever heard Bob Carlyle was "Butterfly Kisses."
Hmm.
That's the only thing I ever heard of Bob Carlyle.
Yeah. This is a
I
better song
wasn't.
than that.
Yeah, I wasn't raised with a whole lot of uh, say Christian music. I mean, I was Southern Baptist Church. We sang hymns. I knew all that. I didn't until I was 16. I only thought the Kingsmen were the only group that did that kind of thing. I never
Hmm.
knew there was a genre of this. And so, and I knew of Carmen and Petra,
Okay.
and that was about it. I mean, I don't know any of these people, and um, so Gus, this had always been one of Gus's favorites by Allies. When Bob Carlyle was there, it was a song that's always stuck with him, and he's always thought it would be fun to record, and so he played it for Gary, um, not thinking, let's say thinking that Gary would go, because you play any kind of if you play a song with a progressive tilt to it, it could take Gary a little bit because
Yeah.
his original question, you mentioned Bob Carlyle, he'll go, well, did he sing with the cathedrals? Right. so so Gary, Gus plays Gary this song, and Gary goes, we need to record that,
Hmm.
and Gus goes, oh, really? He said, yeah, yeah, but present that at the listening session. We need to record that. And so, oh, okay. And so that song has just always been embedded in him. He went to church with Allies at the time drummer,
Gus did.
and he met him at church, and they began talking, and he didn't realize who he was talking to, who he was,
Hmm.
and Gus. If anyone meets Gus, he can become friends with the doorknob. I mean, I've
Hmm.
never seen anything like it. And so he's just talking, man, you're a great drummer, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I play with a little Christian band from blah, 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 blah. He said, who? You don't mind me asking? He said, band called Allies. And Gus starts naming off the songs, all the songs.
Hmm.
And the guy goes, you're a fan of Allies. He said, are you kidding me? So, and he told him Heaven was one of his favorite songs. Anyways, so Gus presented it and we recorded it. And that's another one every night. I'm telling you, Daniel, it's been a hot
Hmm.
minute since I've seen an album touch so many for lack of better terms, touch so many hot spots with people. Um, it's, it is, and especially when an album, let me add to this, when an album comes together as quickly as this one came together,
Yeah.
you don't, you, the object is to get it done. You
Mhm.
get focused in the work. Let's get this done. It has to get done. We've got to get this out. Yes, okay. We did the prayerful work. What songs we want to do, but now we've got to get the job done. And so you're just so focused on that, and so sometimes an album that you think, oh, the anointing is on, and it may be, but for some reason, for some people, it just doesn't click with. And this one, you could knock us over with a feather with how well this thing is being received. It just, and I don't necessarily know why, other than the hand of God on it. But to sit
Mhm.
and analyze it from a secular perspective, or from a mindset of communication, yeah, these songs speak about certain things, but I didn't realize it was hitting people as hard as it's hitting them. And I'm thankful for that,
Yeah.
because that means it's making a difference somewhere.
In Southern gospel, it all starts with the song.
Oh, buddy,
Um,
it sure
yeah,
does.
the arrangements matter a lot. The performance matters a lot. The way the singers conduct themselves with people matters a lot, and how well people receive it. But it all
100%.
starts with the song, and when you have a collection of really strong songs,
Yes.
it's positioned well to go places. And one speaking of the songs being really strong, there's a lot of talk. A lot of good preachers have said, "Be careful about all that secular media says about following your heart." It's like the Disney thing, follow your heart. Like, no, follow the word of God, because our heart is sinful and desperately wicked, and it'll lead us astray. I love how Heaven, the end of that second verse, twists it and puts a Christian spin, spins it around the other direction. Says, I'll be following my heart to heaven. Just given the prevalence of that phrase in our society, I love how that spins it around and points it toward heaven.
Well, and it's not well, you know as well as I do. We as Christians,
Mhm.
we have a tendency to speak a lot of churchese and
Yes.
Christianese, and I think when things are put in a way that is palatable to a secular mindset, and
Mhm.
a lot of preachers these days, really good preachers, have a real gift at just talking plainly and
Mhm.
speaking clearly. And I think that's one of the, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of the strong points of that song. It's not so, thus and thou, and
Mhm.
brother and sister, and you know the
Yeah.
things that we do.
Yeah. It was him is such a strong song from Ian. Not, there's the bass songs that have the rhythmic thing going, like his other song in this album,
Hmm.
and there's big songs, big ballads you hear. It's not that common, I think, for a bass singer to just have a tender, soft ballad,
Hmm.
which is what this one is.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'd love to hear how you came across this song, and how you were like, let's have our bass singer give this one a try.
So the very reason why you said what you said about bass featured songs
Hmm.
is the reason why Ian Owens went on a hunt for this song.
I see.
He his heart, he has fun doing the bass thing, but
Hmm.
he has this, as all of us in our group do. He has this ability to communicate um concepts to people well. Matter of fact, he'll tell you admittedly that he's a grammar Nazi, and so he's very particular about what is said, meaning what you say and saying what you mean.
Hmm.
Me, I in general conversation, I'm a generalist lots of times, because
Hmm.
I get where you're going. Okay, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I'm my brain is constantly going, so I'll go. Yeah, I
Hmm.
get the idea. All right, go. You know, no, there needs to be detail, right, where he's concerned, and so that, I think, really played into this, um him this hunt for this song, because he really wanted to say something. He really wanted
Hmm.
to croon, on the artist side. He really wanted to croon a song. He really wanted to
Hmm.
make it pretty, didn't want the hokey, which he has fun with, and it's great, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted something that that sang well, and that
Mm-hmm.
sang well for him, but also said something and showed his heart. And so he called Habedank, Joseph Habedank, and and him and um, Phil and
Phil
who's
Cross and Rodney Griffin.
Ronnie Griffin, Phil Cross and Ronnie Griffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, small hitters there. Um, I think it was Phil who had the idea for the song. Um, uh, Ian tells the story that he asked Phil about it, and what happened was Phil was at something with Billy Graham, and he asked Billy Graham. He said, um, "Want don't you think it's going to be amazing when you get there? I mean, just on that level where it's going to be something to have people walk up and all the people that say, kind of the Rodney Griffin faces concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, people say, I came to the Lord because of you. I came and and Billy Graham looked at Phil and said, well, that's nice and that's sweet and that's kind and that's a nice thought. But he said, I don't think it's gonna be that way at all. He said, everybody up there is gonna go, oh no, it was him. It wasn't anything I did. It was nothing that I did. It was all the Son. It was
Mm-hmm.
all. He just was the willing mouthpiece, the obedient mouthpiece. And so that's what led to the writing of that song. And man, Ian really every night he delivers that song so well, and it's communicated well. I think there's a difference. I think this is an aside. I think there's a difference between delivering and communicating.
Hmm.
An opera singer will deliver a story, great,
Mm-hmm.
but to communicate a concept that has some meat and that actually means something and has value, I think that's completely different. And he really does communicate that song amazingly.
I would not have guessed that it came from a conversation with Billy Graham, just because it's been enough years that Billy's been in glory now that you just wouldn't expect it. That's really cool.
Right?
And I also like how this song brings out somewhat of each of the personalities of the three co-writers,
Yes.
because it feels like a very Phil Cross song in a lot of ways. I can see how Ian would gravitate toward it because Phil is precision. He is a craftsman.
Mhm,
Every syllable is where it should be. That's a Phil Cross song.
mhm,
And then the testimony component, that's where you hear Rodney.
mhm.
And then I kind of feel like Joseph had a hand in the bridge.
Oh,
That just
100%.
feels like a Joseph bridge.
100%. Every night we sing it, I go, oh, this got Joseph's hands all over it. You know.
Hmm.
And and
Yeah.
and I think that's exactly what it needed. I mean,
Yeah.
he brought out each of those in that bridge, each of those characteristics, um, because that's who's going to be there.
Hmm.
You know.
All right. The last specific song I'd like to ask you about, and then I'll have just a general open ended at the end. But the last specific one is Grace When I Fall.
Oh,
And like I have some guesses, but I'd love to hear from you first rather than putting words in your mouth. What caught your attention about this one and it made you want to be like, this one's going to be my other solo. Of course you're singing well, not of course, but you're singing your song. That makes perfect sense. What drew you to this one?
okay. So actually, it wasn't intended for. We didn't plan for me to sing this one. Matter
Oh,
of fact,
okay.
this song was a last. We had 10 songs already chosen, and
Hmm.
so we had to throw. Here's another neat thing for people who don't know how this process goes. Lots of times, and this is a fantastic problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. We had a whole second album on the floor. I mean, we had so many good songs. And this is a prime example of that. Grace When I Fall came to us last minute that we scratched one off of the album to add this one to
Hmm.
it.
That
It
makes sense.
affected us so prolifically just because of how raw the
Hmm.
topic is. Um, the topic is such a um, yeah, raw is the only word, is such a transparent thing to admit
Hmm.
about
Yeah.
yourself. And
Yeah.
so, matter of fact, um, to communicate that song, every night when I get to, um, God gives mercy for failures, I point to myself.
Hmm.
God gives mercy for failures and grace when
Hmm.
I fall, because all of us are. Listen, in Jesus, we're not. In
Hmm.
flesh, we are. We're
That's well said.
failures in flesh.
Hmm.
Oh, but he's made billions of dollars and if you don't have the Lord, friend, you're a failure,
Hmm.
period. And so I think that's just so important. And I think it's important for people to hear. So Gus goes, um, Josh, how you feel about singing this song? And I think Gary did as well. How do you feel about singing this song? I think you should sing this. I said, okay. And so it wasn't until I agreed that I really dug into the lyrics to go, oh man. Oh, no. I tell you what it was. They said, do you want this one or this song? So
Yeah.
he said, you want last one more than you want Grace When I Fall? And when I read the lyrics, really read them, man, it just
Hmm.
slapped me in the face. And I have this tendency to, if a song slaps me in a corrective, or if it's like a mirror, right?
Hmm.
If a song is like a mirror, I will, I tend to lean to them. I don't know if that's a self-deprecating thing. I don't know if that's
Hmm.
I don't know what that is, other than, um, you know, I need to be reminded. I kept an email from, uh, uh, this is an aside. For those who may not know, my personality just doesn't do it for some people. And every once in a square blue moon, I'll
Hmm.
receive an email about how my personality is just too much for some people. And so
Hmm.
I got this scathing email years ago, and I've kept it. And I kept it for the reason why Mark Lowry kept a letter of that he got years ago. And he said, I kept it and framed it because if I ever get too big for my britches, I need to be reminded that not everybody likes me.
Hmm.
And I feel like that this song really reminds me that no matter how nice people say that I am, how good that people say that I am I, outside of the blood of Jesus, I'm zilch. I'm nothing.
Yes.
Zero. And so that song, man, phew, um, that was that really stuck in me. And so when
Hmm.
I felt that go in, I went, yeah, this I'm going to record this one. And Terry
Hmm.
Franklin wrote um, a
For
song
God
on
so
one of
loved.
our former albums, Journey of
Oh,
Hope,
sorry.
called "In the Valley I Can Hear His Voice," which
Yes.
is which is not written similar, but kind of sort of written similar. Just the
Hmm.
structure is a little similar, and and that song's one of my all time favorite songs that we ever did.
Hmm.
And so when this one, he 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 wrote a killer song. He really did.
Yeah. And people who he doesn't write a lot of songs,
No.
but when he does, they're okay. Southern gospel fans will know Brian Free's probably his signature song still to this day, "For God So
Yep.
Loved," was a Terry and Barbara Franklin song. But I love how this song is so scriptural. There's so much Bible in it, and as you say, there's the conviction, but there's the hope. It doesn't leave you there just straight word for word from James. I think it's verse 2 where it says, "Mercy triumphs over judgment." And I don't know if I've ever heard that referenced word for word in a song
I
before.
haven't.
And I was like, okay, this song's something special.
It is, and that's and Terry's good about his writing being very biblical. I love that. I love that about his writing. But and then my favorite line is, "Heaven would be empty if God gave justice to me and you.
Wow.
Mercy still triumphs over judgment. It's true, but heaven would be so empty if God gave justice to me and you."
Yes.
I mean, he made us to fellowship with us. And if he just gave justice to us all, we wouldn't even be where he is. Like
Yeah.
that's just mind-boggling when you think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what ultimately was Lucifer stealing from him um, with the fall
Mm-hmm.
ultimately became this reason why we're going to be able to be with him.
Yeah.
You know,
Huh.
it's interesting how God turns everything for good.
Amen. Amen.
You know, ah,
All right. So there are a lot of amazing songs on this project. Those were just some songs I had specific questions on. Just moving toward wrapping up. Anything else from the album, song wise, arrangement wise? Anything else you'd like to mention before we conclude?
yeah, that somebody who prays, man.
Yes.
Gary and I, that song really struck a key with Gary and I. It did
Hmm.
for Gary. Gary is a prayer.
Yes.
People call him all hours of the night just to pray, and he'll be the first to tell you it's hard for him to have faith for himself, but he can have faith for other people.
Hmm.
And I think that's true with a lot of us. It's hard for us to have faith for ourselves. We can pray for people and believe for people all day long, but then when we're the ones suffering with the pain or the mental fight, that's what has us distracted, and so sometimes it's harder. Eh, there was a lady who passed away about 2 years ago at age 84, who was like a grandmother to me and to Gary. Gary more
Hmm.
so and longer than me for about, like a grandmother to Gary for 40 years. Um,
Well,
Me for my entire career in gospel music, which now is 25 years. So at the time, about 22, 23 years. And because I met her through him. She was one of these people. She's one of those that um, fasted every Wednesday, water fasted every Wednesday. And every year she chose one ministry and she did a 40-day fast for that ministry, every water fast for that
well,
ministry every year. Whenever she prayed loud. You could hear the enemy. You could be in McDonald's and you could hear the enemy go, "Oh no, not her again." Because he had to go. Enemy had to go. You had to go. Whenever she prayed, the enemy had to leave. Couldn't stand it. So she was also one of those people that if you didn't talk to her in a month or two, she'd call you, read your mail, and be dead on. And
hmm,
she was one of those people who prayed.
yeah.
God would put people's faces in front of her face, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. She would lots of times, you know, tell the Lord, okay, but I really need to sleep. But I mean, I'll get up, and she would get up and pray. And she'd go, but can I sleep now, please? Can I just sleep? And so he would remind her, no, you asked to be someone who prayed and
Well,
praying with a difference. And so, so she did. She was obedient like that. And she had many stories, all kinds of stories of things that happened. So this song really struck that chord of
mm,
all of us in the group, and I think those who have had a relationship with the Lord for any significant amount of time understand the importance of prayer, but not just now I lay me down to sleep, but actual just beating on the office door of the Lord and saying, and laboring over those prayers.
mm,
And that song really struck a note there. And I really think arrangement wise, um, I love the fact that Wayne brought in uh, Jim Hammerly. Jim Hammerly.
yes.
And
Piano number
he
three.
has there's a gospel It's a distinct Jim Hammerly style that you hear, and
Yeah.
since I heard the name Jim Hammerly and started listening to his playing back when I was a teenager, I emulated and learned a lot just from listening to him, and it really brought there's a nostalgia to the sound of that song for me, but outside of that, the message is just. I want to be somebody who prays. I want to, when I pray, I want it to matter and not be a waste of my time and the Lord's time.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, even
Yeah.
if it takes years, it was what, 25 years for Abram when he found out that he was going to father a nation before they actually had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
the prayers mattered, the relationship mattered. The prayer was consistent, the relationship was consistent, and I want to be that. And I think that's what's that song really just hits home. I want my time with the Lord to matter. I want my words not to go. I don't want it to go just to the ceiling. I want to affect the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. I want it to affect the kingdom. I want it to affect the earth. I want it to affect the situations that I know for certain the enemy has his hands on. I want it to affect the nation. I want it to affect those things, not to my will, but to what's going to grow the kingdom. And I think that song, man, is just a solid reminder. I want to be somebody who prays. Great song. Great song.
It is a great song. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, talk about
Oh
this. This
man, Daniel,
conversation
thank
has
you for
been
letting me do
rich
it.
and deep.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is
It
always, I
was,
love this kind of stuff.
me too. Me too. I've loved this. So thank you for your time. Just in closing, how can people keep up with Tribute Quartet?
The easiest way I tell people all the time is search in your favorite search engine, Tribute Quartet. Everything pops up. Just search it.
Thank you. And to the listener, thank you for listening to Southern Gospel Journal. You can keep up with the latest episodes on YouTube, Facebook, your favorite podcast platform, or on southerngospeljournal.com. Thanks for listening.